Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear us?
James, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Will, can you hear us?
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear us? I brought the wrong glasses.
Matt, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yes. Can you hear me?
Excellent.
Okay, great. Hopefully everyone else can hear us. Hello? Well, welcome to the Planning Commission workshop for Tuesday, August 18th. And here in council chambers is Commissioner Peter Rye and myself. I am Wayne Beeler. I am the chairman of the Planning Commission. And online, we have with us James Harris and William Simpisi. And I think Nelson said he wouldn't be able to join us today, as I remember. Okay. Do we have acceptance of the Planning Commission agenda? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. And sure James is there somewhere. Okay, first up, we have public comment. Gentleman just walked in. Would you like to make a comment? Yeah, you could sit at the desk there and hit the button with the little guy on it. There we go.
Okay, I was here about a month ago, maybe only 3 weeks, and I just came back to see what kind of progress that you guys have come up with, and just here to listen. Maybe I'll be able to make a comment later on.
We'll have another comment period after our discussion.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Surely.
Okay, so today's meeting is to discuss the latest update to the data center ordinance that we are developing. It's up to 21 pages. And yes, I believe you are looking at that. Oh, no, we generally don't do that because usually nobody shows up for public comment. Do we? Oh, Peter, can you give him your copy? Agenda.
Mr. Chair, do we have I remember
the gentleman spoke last meeting. Do we have his name for our record?
Oh, yeah, you could.
Ray Beddall, Beddall.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Okay.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, great. So I will start out with the fact that the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, released an executive order at about 4 o'clock this afternoon concerning data centers. And basically the highlights are that the state won't do anything until the data center is approved by the local municipality, according to its subdivision and land development ordinance and its zoning ordinance. The other things that are interesting about it is that connection to the grid must be paid for by the owner of the data center. Any data center that was part of the Fast Track program that was instituted in 2024 has now been removed, and no data centers will be allowed to join that program. And that the owner company that runs the data center must provide a yearly report giving energy usage, including electric, gas, and other sources, water usage, and also dumping into rivers and other things like that. Just getting through the highlights here. The executive order is 8 pages long. And there's a section in here talking about once the municipality has approved the data center, that the DEP shall identify mechanisms to expedite permitting and remove permitting relating barriers for new, clean, reliable, affordable energy generation. So renewables is what I take from that. And the other interesting thing is that this executive order shall take effect immediately, so it is in effect. The important thing about this for us is that unlike in many areas, this gives local control on data centers over to the municipality. And we are lucky enough that Jamie and City Council had the forward vision to push this through and say, we need a data ordinance. And this is definitely coming at the right time.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Will.
Yes, thank you for sending that out this afternoon. I saw that headline in the Inquirer right before you sent it, so we're keeping up to date. I think it certainly validates what we in Reading are doing, but given that it is only an executive order, not legislation, I think we should just continue to proceed with what we're doing. And if the legislature were to enact any bit of it, or there were any court rulings or whatever, then we could, incorporate any changes if it's within our timeline. I think we should just keep on what we're doing. It certainly, like I say, validates the concerns that have been expressed.
Yes, I completely agree. So, I guess where we'll start off,
If I could
is,
just say one thing, real quick, Mr. Chairman, about the executive order. I agree with everything that's been stated that, this is a good thing and that it's kind of putting a pause to a lot of these fast track developments. It doesn't eliminate the need for a data center ordinance, which is why the importance still remains. One other item that's been raised in other municipalities we represent recently, there's been concern about these non-disclosure agreements that data centers seem to be interested in, seem to be trying to push through, which never really registered to me because that seems to go against the Sunshine Act and all these other transparency standards, but that has been officially declared. You can't enter into these non-disclosure agreements with data centers. So that's just one other point. If anyone comes before any part of it, before the planning commission or any member, you could officially announce that that's not something that can be done anymore under the executive order.
Yeah, in fact, that was something that I had marked down, but skipped over.
Yeah, it's only something I've been hearing about recently, and I would hope it's not a concern due to Sunshine Act standards, but because it's been brought up, I didn't want to catch anyone unawares and wanted to inform you that this has officially been addressed by this executive order.
Very good. Let's see here. Jamie.
Yes, thank you so much, Chairman. I just wanted to make also a quick comment, I think along the same lines, that Governor Shapiro, I just saw that came out today in his executive order. What it does not do is replace or stop Reading's process. If anything, it reinforces the work that everyone has been doing by confirming that local zoning review and municipal approval remain an essential part of this discussion with data centers, and before any data center can move forward. So I just want to thank everybody once more for their hard work, and I'm happy to see the governor's executive order. It just reinforces and emphasizes the need for our local legislation.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. And I'm sure it might have come as a surprise when it came across your desk. I was lucky enough that Michael Gumbar sent it to me.
Likewise, yes, I was very surprised, and I do apologize for not being there in person. I am currently working. Party at the Park is Saturday, an event that we do for the community, and I'm currently working on book bags right now as I'm in the meeting. But I do want to thank everybody for the work that's being done. Honestly, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think what we'll do is we'll do a roundtable, and we'll start with Peter if he has any comments on the latest version of the ordinance.
Well, yes, I do. I guess I do worry that what are customarily data centers, data rooms, whatever for existing businesses, whether you're a bank or a manufacturing factory, fall awfully close to meeting a lot of this criteria, and it's and I think the distinction here really is, where in the definition of data center, where it says the equipment is not of the principal use of the property, which my company has multiple manufacturing locations in a variety of places, and any manufacturing operation today or of any significant scale is going to have data collection systems and processing, and machine learning is starting to be a real thing. And so we, you know, go down this road where we have a lot of this infrastructure that would checks off a lot of this criteria. It already exists, right? And we also we have made investments in this, and where maybe one facility houses the predominant processing capacity to support other facilities in other locales, because we don't duplicate things where we don't have to, right? So you start to get into gray area. What is the principal use of the facility? And this is really not intended to sweep up, you know, what is today customary uses of IT infrastructure for non-AI purposes, which until AI came along, we weren't talking about this. And even AI is not a sufficient definition today because we use it. It is embedded in things we buy. You know, it's embedded in your Ring camera on your front door. I just want to caution that, you know, this thing actually does, you'd have to really read it carefully and have some lively debate as to whether it actually sweeps up unintended things. And I don't know how to go around that.
Well, we might want to consider that the executive order from Governor Shapiro only includes data centers of over 25 megawatts.
And that was what I was actually going to get to is, you know, we can make a distinction here on the basis of, you know, the compute capacity, which, you know, roughly could be the power consumption. You know, we do many of these things that are described in this document as data center. But we don't consume very much electricity doing it. And if we did, it would be of a large scale. So, you know, what is a threshold, you know, where we want to say we need to regulate this as being, you know, a substantial facility that we want to have controls over, or, you know, reviews and discussions over whether we want it. And it really just comes down, in my mind, the simplest approach is to specify a threshold on power consumption. If the data center is using more than, you know, 500 kilowatts of power or something, that would be significant. That would be far beyond what, you know, a sizable manufacturing operation with a concentration of data center infrastructure in it, or, you know, a data processing center for a major bank or something. You know, there is some threshold here where it becomes an item of interest versus something that everybody has to some degree. And even if they don't have it at the moment, they're aspiring to have it soon. And this is very fast-paced evolution. You know, I would suggest that there might be an easier way to define what the target is here that we're interested in regulating just on the basis of power consumption. That's sort of my main interest. And on the basis of power consumption, there are, even existing today or being planned, small facilities and big facilities. Right? And, you know, I think everybody is assuming that if we didn't regulate things, a big facility would be built in the city of Reading, which I don't know how likely that is to occur. And if there was somebody wanted to build a small facility here, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for the local economy. So I do wonder if there isn't, you know, some tiers here where you can say, well, we might consider this more easily than we would consider something much larger. You know, because you know, this data center thing is going to be driving the economy for quite a long time. And the thing that gets us out of power consumption and water usage, which seem to be the main concerns here, is going to be just the efficiency of the chips that get developed over time. You know, what we do in our company today with the equipment that we have, you know, would have taken a large facility that's consumed megawatts of power only 30, 40 years ago. You know, this is just a moving target. If it didn't consume a lot of power, and with power comes cooling, and with cooling comes water consumption. If it didn't consume a lot of power, we really wouldn't care. In fact, we would encourage economic development on the basis of new technology, which we generally do. Again, it comes down to essentially power consumption. And you know, what is a big data center today that uses a lot of power, 10 years, 20 years from now, won't be a big data center. It'll be a small one, consuming a little bit of power as the evolution goes. So really, we're just talking about power consumption. I guess I know there's a lot of interest in closed loop cooling. Closed loop cooling is less efficient than open loop cooling. The power penalty is roughly around 30%. You have to spend 30% more energy to achieve the same cooling capability with a closed loop system. And with more energy consumption comes more demand on the power plant, and it's also going to reject more water, more heat through water, right? And generate and produce more CO2 in the process. You know, so we got to be careful what we wish for. I just wanted to point that out. Those are some of my comments. I guess the primary ones that I'd like to make.
And if I'm a Mr. Chair, if I may, I thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I thank you, Peter. You know, you're absolutely right, right? Like, technology is everywhere. It consumes power and everything, even from, as you stated, from our door ring, or right, like the cameras. And I think you're absolutely right that there is a difference when it comes to scale or the impact that it has. And I think all things need to be taken into account. I remember at the last meeting, I had stated that, you know, it's not necessarily our job as legislators to tell an operator exactly how to meet the standards. The responsibility is on the operator to determine that. Our job is just to establish reasonable, right? And they have to be reasonable protections for energy, water, noise, emergency response, public safety. They decide how to get it done. We just ensure it's done safely. And I feel that that's the balance that we need. And we do need to take into account that, I mean, this is not going anywhere. This is just, but it is certainly something that I do believe that needs to be regulated. And we need to look at the consequences of even enacting the ordinance and the regulations that we're placing around it. So absolutely agree.
Thank you, James. And I don't know if you had a chance, Peter, to look over all the review all the technical specifications for the noise ordinance that is included here.
You know, I think that our concern about noise and vibration and other sort of environmental effects wouldn't be any different than if it was, you know, making widgets, right? It's just a factory of a different horse of a different color, right? So if somebody wanted to build a factory and make widgets, and they were going to make a lot of noise in the community, that would be a problem. This is really, for me, no different. So what are the existing regulations on the book over noise pollution? You know, from a zoning standpoint, you know, is there one? Is it vary by whether it's MC or HM?
Actually, in the city of Reading, the noise ordinance is very loose and does not include any reference to decibels at a specific boundary, at any specific boundary, which is causing a lot of problems for city council. The 2 city council meetings ago, they were actually talking about this. And so this, our ordinance actually has some pretty specific decibel requirements, including requirements for decibels lower than the human ear can hear.
Yeah. Well, you know, I live in the city of Reading. I live near the Reading Hospital. On any given day or evening outside, I can hear traffic. I can hear the train. I can hear the hospital's helicopters. I can hear loud music coming from cars. I can hear a whole lot of things, but I don't hear factories where I live. I hear the football announcer at Berks Catholic from my backyard, but I can hear a lot of things. I don't know that we have a problem with noisy factories, but certainly if we did, that would be undesirable. And I agree, we should put something, we should have a noise ordinance covering, you know, industrial uses or industrial polluters, noise polluters. I don't know that making it specifically rigorous for data centers is the solution.
From my knowledge of acoustical engineering from when I used to be, at one time I was a engineer that put the cue points on CDs. And in the ordinance, it calls for standard between 20 and 20,000 hertz, 60 decibels, which is pretty good because I think background noise is 65.
Yeah, right.
So it's not, and there's a 5 decibel error allowed.
Yeah. So, you know, should there be noise regulations? Yes. Should it be unique to data centers? I don't think so. If we want to put it in here for now, that's fine, but don't make it so difficult that nobody will meet it.
Yeah.
You know, I had a industrial process, this was quite a few years ago, that had a heat exchanger that took city water and ran straight through and in the drain. Not a good use of water, but that was quite a long time ago. The problem was that the discharge water quality was held to a standard that the incoming city water couldn't meet, right? This is an example of, you know, a standard that's unachievable. So, you know, don't do it unless you truly don't want data centers.
Okay. As I reviewed the noise, now that the whole thing about the noise below 20 hertz that a human ear can hear. Yeah. that rumble that you feel, I think it's 40 decibels in the,
Yeah.
but there's also requirements about if we need to, if we need to, check the vibration, at a boundary point,
Yeah.
that, we have the right to do that.
Yeah.
And they have to pay for it.
Yeah. Again, low frequency noise or rumble, the only real source of that I'm aware of in our community is trains. They do rumble
Hmm.
and they do shake houses.
Yeah. Yeah, I live on Fifth Street, and of course, the trains are on Seventh Street, so.
Yeah, so-
I live 2 blocks from the main train yard.
Yeah. So if they're allowed to exist, would you actually hold a factory to a lesser standard than already existing noise? But yeah.
Let's correct something first of all. We do have noise provisions. It's under section 600-917. I think I made that statement last meeting,
Mhm.
but we do have them. Now they're for higher frequencies,
Mhm.
not for the lower frequencies. So we do have them. And they're also, they were formulated in the 70s, and just about every single municipality has provisions similar to these.
But, it's fine if we want to capture it here until we get a more comprehensive noise standard put in place. Just don't make it overly restrictive. If there is industry standards for what is acceptable noise from industrial concerns, use them here, I would say.
Mhm. Yeah, we might just have to update that eventually. Okay. Actually, do you have anything else, Peter?
If you ask me something else, I probably will.
No, I'm not asking any more questions.
The boundaries here, this, again, we can make, the setbacks so restrictive that there's no practical place to put them. And again, that forwards the agenda that we essentially don't want them. If it's just a box, a building that's going to not make noise above, the ambient noise and not cause any other areas of concern, does it matter that it's, 500 feet away from, the boundary of the district? Does it matter? I mean, there could be something else closer to the boundary that is making more noise or causing more, has traffic or light pollution or, emissions or who knows what, right? That is allowed to be closer to the edge of the boundary. Again, well, obviously you can tell that personally, I think that there could be economic benefit to the city. To shy away from it, I think is a mistake, but as long as it is within an acceptable set of parameters. I don't know that the setback changes anything of significance if it is sufficiently quiet and doesn't have excessive emissions or has excessive power demand. There is a cloud computing data center near the airport. That's the former UGI building on 183.
The Med-Ed building.
Or Med-Ed building, is it?
Yeah.
My company uses their cloud services. Nobody nobody knows that there's anything uniquely different about the building. It looks like an office building. Just has some large standby power diesel units outside that are appropriately shrouded, and you don't see them, and I'm sure they don't run that often. You know, these things can coexist with communities. Not that there's residential around there, but I'm just saying that, you know, there's stuff already in existence in our community. Of course, I mentioned the gas turbines at Reading Hospital. Because I know that they're there and I know what they sound like, I can hear them from my house, but if I took you to my house, you wouldn't identify the sound unless you know what you're looking for. But you can hear them. They do contribute to background noise. But, you know, this is all acceptable to the community, and there's economic benefit to the community. I would be careful not to be too restrictive here.
Okay, very good. James, do you have any comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you, James. Will, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's some concern expressed a number of times in the draft, and understandably why, about the noise from electricity generators. And I know this has come up. I've expressed concern about, you know, buffering the sound with other projects that we've approved. And I think we're talking about emergency generators, although I realize some of these data centers have their own source of energy. But either way, I would just point out that some generators are quiet in operation. For example, there are solar power generators. I mean, even with generators, there are sound muffling mechanisms, but they're not all noisy. So that's something that maybe we should consider. And the alternative energy ordinance that the city had approved several years ago is referenced in the draft, and there's a reference to nuclear power. But there again, I would point out that with solar power, for example, one could have battery banks. At least if we're talking about emergency, you know, backup power, if not for ongoing usage. And there might be other alternative energy sources that are not as noisy. So that's something. And I was thinking already, like what Commissioner Rye was saying, this is a concern beyond just for data centers. Because sometimes we've had generators right up against houses, right? You know, not literally attached, but right near them. So maybe our staff could think about that, come up with some language or suggestions, please. And then I was a little confused. In the whereas sections, it says that these data centers are prohibited in the floodplain, riparian buffers zones, steep slopes, and the transit-oriented district. But then later on, it says in designated sections. And later on, it says that they are allowed in the designated section. I don't know if that was a typographical error, or if I'm not understanding correctly, or are they allowed in?
There's a typo.
I'm sorry.
There's a typo.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, if you, that clears that up, then. So there. Well, what is the right answer then?
The right answer is it is not permitted within the floodplain, the riparian buffer, or steep slope overlay districts. It's also prohibited within the TOD overlay.
Thank you. That's what I thought. It would make more sense if that were just a typo. Thank you. Okay. And then a question I have, maybe it's in there and I missed this. Is the discharge of the wastewater going to be into the sanitary or the storm sewer system?
The water supply for the cooling system would be a closed loop system. and wastewater from the facility would go into our sanitary sewer system. If pre-treatment is required, then the Public Works Department would resolve that matter as part of the permitting process.
I see. Okay, that's part of the closed loop. It's not closed loop for the water coming into the. It's for the outgoing of the discharge. Okay, I get it. Thank you. So my only concern with that is, but again, I know our public works engineers will, be mindful of this already. I'm sure is if there's discharge that's continuing on a continuous basis, like when there's peak usage, like flash floods and that sort of thing. So as long as that's, we're not exceeding the capacity or something. Other than that, I just had like minor things. On section E8 on page 9, and this part was, I can't find where I have the order. Here it is. This is the part where it's still in the red. I missed this before. Where it says, or 8, section, the site shall be designed, developed, and operated in order to consider the cultural heritage. I would just reword that so it's clear. Operated in consideration of, or with consideration for, something like that, so that it's clear that the design, development, and operation has to already consider it ahead of time and not after the fact. Just to make it clearer in the word. Just my suggestion.
Where does your E8?
On page 9.
Okay. Yeah, that it starts with the site shall.
Yes. Yeah. That's just my suggestion. It's not bad the way it is. I just think it's clearer that way. Section I3 on page 12, just a minor. Where it starts out, the applicant shall prepare and submit a wastewater flow assessment report. The third line it says will be discharges, should be will be discharged with a D, past tense.
That was I3?
Yes. Okay. And then section K9, and that is all the way on page 15. The K9A, that first sentence needs to be reworked. It's like either one sentence that was cut off or it's redundant. You'll see what I mean when you look at that. It has between 8 a.m. and then it has nothing after that. And then it looks like another sentence, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Just take a look at that and clear that up, please.
It was cut off.
Okay, thank you. And then just my general comment is always that preceding a colon should be a complete sentence. Every time it says shall include, just include the following or something like that. Other than that, it looked very good to me, both substantively and in terms of all the grammar, punctuation, spelling, and all that. Thank you. But I think this is the technical part here that we were looking forward to seeing when we started this last month. I think we're making great progress. So thank you.
I agree.
Thank you, Will. This, I have a few questions about the wording also. Will picked up on a lot of them already. So on page 3, under the definition for closed loop cooling system, I'm not sure if on the the very last line, it says discharges substantial quantities of potable water. I guess it should say potable water since we're requiring them to hook up to Rawa. But I'm not sure if it really needs to be there.
We can add potable water or other, and then we can figure out with the Public Works Department what other types of wastewater would be appropriate.
Yeah, okay.
Well, if it's a closed loop, it's not using water.
But spent water may be chosen to release and maybe not into the atmosphere or into another water body source, but it might be discharged into the sanitary sewer system. We need to check with Public Works.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Don.
I guess I'm questioning if we really want to require that they tie into potable water. I know that we had discussed possibly allowing them to use raw water. At least the option, as long as they, satisfied all the regulators who would be involved with something like that.
If you write down closed loop cooling system, it doesn't matter because it's not using any water. Period. There's no recurring water consumption.
It's a one-time fill.
A one-time fill.
Unless the evaporation.
Well, if it's closed loop, there is no evaporation.
I thought there was.
No.
The evaporation will be.
Minimum evaporation.
Would occur.
Minimum evaporation. Yeah. There's
Don't know
minimum.
how much, but it will.
We can't hear everything.
Oh, we're just discussing if in a closed loop system there is any loss of water within the system.
Right. That's a good question. Just couldn't hear everybody's comments.
Yeah. So that's something we'll do a little bit more research into.
Yeah.
That really didn't address the question I had, which is if they wanted to put in a pump station at the Schuylkill River and pump raw water into their closed loop system, why would that not be considered?
Because they do not want to do that. The closed loop is going to be pretty pure water and it's going to be reused, not expelled. Right? That's a closed loop system.
Right.
If I may just jump in here, the closed loop does not automatically mean zero evaporation, though. It does not, like if it has so closed loop, it's talking about recirculation. But what happens if there is an evaporation of it or a blowdown or leaks or maintenance? I mean, there is a potential that portable water may still be used not only for the initial fill, but to replace water lost through evaporation or any kind of leaks or maintenance.
This is actually my business, cooling systems. It's true closed loop systems. We call them dry coolers. They're circulating fluid through a fin coil and blowing air over the fin coil. That water is just circulated and reused. Yeah, occasionally you might have a leak and lose some water, or you might want to replace it because it gets too dirty to maintain. But that's an occasional thing, right? There's not evaporative loss on a regular use basis. And the wet cooling system its heat rejection method is through evaporation. That's how it functions. And there are some hybrid variations in between that can get kind of complicated. But these, there's two ends of the spectrum here. A pure wet cooling system, which is what most power plants use. The Ontolani one is an open loop wet cooling system. Titus was also, I think the one downtown that I don't know if it's still operating. That's also an open loop cooling system.
And it reminds me that I passed a nuclear generating station in Limerick the other day. And that has two
cooling
huge
system. Yeah.
Yeah, they have two huge cooling towers there, which is part of the concern why the neighbors there are concerned about a data center being put there, because they will be downstream from, they will be downstream from the nuclear power plant. And therefore, if they're also extracting water from the Schuylkill River like the nuclear power plant does, that's part of the reason they're all up in arms. But
Well, they're
you're
already
mentioning that.
experiencing a substantial water evaporation activity going on there.
Yeah.
The data center have to be massive to approximate that water usage that's already happening. This is all relative. They're not using a power plant's worth of electricity. They're using some small fraction of its generating capacity.
Okay.
Yeah, and the term blowdown water applies to open loop wet cooling towers as well. And those can use river water. Or effluent from wastewater treatment plants, they can. The open loop cooling towers can. The closed loops will keep the water in the loop pretty darn pure, and will reuse it all the time until there's some maintenance event.
So it makes sense that it would be connected to, it would be probably cheaper and better for them to connect to the public utility.
Well, they will be, because they're going to have potable water needs in any building that has people working in it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Next up, page 5, A2. I think that needs to be renumbered. It says E, but I don't know if there needs to be a sub thing there.
It is E. It is subsection E.
Oh, okay, great. Then should we, since it's mentioned earlier in the definitions, do we need to put the word hyperscale there where it says data center, major data center, or data center campus?
Hyperscale is defined.
Okay, great. And then that takes care of that. That takes care of that. And and then the following paragraph where it says A2 again, it should be A3 on page 5.
Well, I'd like to just ask another question.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's a lot of this that is nice to have. So in that section E, number 6, any building facade facing a public street, residential district, or sensitive receptor shall avoid long monolithic appearance and shall incorporate at least 2 of the following. Blah, blah, blah. Right. So, I have a factory building in the city of Reading in an MC district that has long monolithic walls on the outside, right? It was allowed to be built. I presume that if somebody wanted to put up a factory building today in MC, that they would be allowed to have long monolithic appearing walls. Why is a data center excluded from having long? But the point is, why are we asking it to be anything different than what we would otherwise allow in an MC district?
This was contained within the model or draft. That's why it's the black tone.
Yeah.
That was originally part of the package. Some things make sense, some don't. So yeah, that could be easily removed. I think you're correct. It's don't know what the state was looking for at that stage, but it could be.
I mean,
it could be amended.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, the question really is, we are asking it to be something architecturally even that we are not asking of other buildings to be built in the MC district. And the question is why? Why? You know, again, if we make this thing so restrictive that nothing can get through, then nothing will get through, if that's the intent.
And what part was that? What section? I'm sorry.
That was like section E 6. I just picked one. I just, you know.
Page 9.
Page 9.
I mean, I'm going to look it up now, but I think that the main thing is that this is, I don't think that the company, right, that you oversee, that you own, is the same as a data center. That's just off the top of my head. I'm still looking for it. It's almost like the examples with hospitals and you know, and using their cooling systems. I mean, they may have similar equipment, but that doesn't mean that the impacts are as equal. It doesn't mean that the matter and the you know, that the size or the number of units or continuous operation noise. Not everything is going to be the same. So we are essentially, this ordinance is essentially for what is to come, right? I mean, I think that it is a fair concern that you have. But I do want to just emphasize that the same, you know, the hospital is not the same as a data center. But I do support maybe revising or taking a look at E6, which I'm looking at now. You know, at the end of the day, I just want to be able to mitigate any impact that it may have. And again, I mean, it's going to be on the owner of the operator to be able to adjust to that, to bring forth, you know, the data center that he wants to bring. But I just want to emphasize, I mean, the business that you run, the hospitals, it's not the same as a data center, or the impacts aren't necessarily the same. So we have to balance that out with what it is that's being introduced here.
The hospital has an institutional zoning. But I don't know if it's in West Reading anyway.
Yeah, and the whole thing about the breaking up the facade every 100 feet, that was something that we started recommending about 20 years ago to everyone who brought a plan before us. Yeah. But so when I looked at it, I didn't think too much about it.
Yeah. Well, I just happened to pick that, but you know, I could pick many other paragraphs and say, you know, that is above and beyond the current MC zoning requirements, right? And the building's use, you know, let's say if I were to build a 100,000 square foot building in the MC district for my company's manufacturing, you know, I would not be required to do many of these things. But the moment that the use inside the building becomes a data center, now it has to be different. No.
That's an accessory component of your business. So we're talking about the principal use of the facility, which would be a data center as defined in the ordinance. But the accessory components would not have to follow these criteria.
That's not what I was trying to say. I was just trying to say that, you know, there is MC development, you know, a building gets built. And if it's used for purpose A, it can look like this. But if it's used for purpose B, it has to look different, even though it's still a box that has, you know, the same height restriction, the same parking requirements, the same noise requirements, the same lighting and landscaping and stormwater and on and on. But because the use is this instead of that, it now has to have architectural features. It has to have many things that the industrial building does not need to have.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering why that is.
And,
Mr.
and,
Oh.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. This is well. No, I mean the concern about consistency is well taken. Like we said before, we have brought up that concern. I know I have raised it. We brought it up as part of the streetscape concern. We're talking about downtown. But the question is a good one is what about other areas? And is it something that we would require in the MC? I'm not sure what zoning or Saldo, what they speak to in other zoning areas, or is this a general concern of ours? Certainly where there's a residential neighborhood near, facing it would be one thing. I know our colleagues' business is in a more isolated area. I think that was a concern about the street. I know it definitely was a concern was the streetscape downtown, where we have some monolithic areas with a lack of fenestration and that. And it's, that's when this was brought up, like you said, before I was on this body 20 years ago, where it has come up. And it's not the only part of the city where there are such structures. So maybe something that we should look at and revisit when looking at all these amendments or our own policy, whether it's zoning or the subdivision land development ordinance or our own policy, Mr. Chairman, as far as the applicability of this principle to areas beyond the downtown. Something that we should definitely think about, to be consistent. It certainly wouldn't matter if it's something that nobody's going to see, no walking by, or is a very low traffic area.
Okay.
Can we start?
yeah.
Can we please start over on what we need to accomplish?
What would you like to go?
Okay. So the first of all, this is a generational topic. In the 70s, we dealt with solid waste disposal facilities. In the 80s, we dealt with telecommunication facilities, and that was also in the 90s. There have been other things of scale that we had to address. This is the next biggest thing. So there is going to be overreaction. People thought that telecommunication facilities would destroy the world, and they did. We worked around them. We came up with reasonable criteria, and that's why we're here. The first thing we need to do is make sure we determine that we have this area targeted within the right place within the city of Reading. So that's why this map was developed. It depicts the areas of the HM zoning district, which was initially discussed. And also the task force that is also assigned to preparing the amendments also suggested that the MC should be incorporated. So we put those on. We felt that the area that was encompassing the TOD overlay would be contradictory to what that purpose was. So we removed it from that, and there's some spillover on this map, but not much. So what you see is the setback criteria that would apply if we applied a 200-foot setback, 300-foot, 400, and 500-foot setback. And this was done just to see do we have sufficient area to put a data center if we through those setback requirements. The setback requirements are from residential districts. A lot of communities are going with 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet. I mean, it's crazy. What you don't see on here is the limits of the 100-year floodplain, the area of the steep slopes overlay, and the area of the riparian buffer, which would almost probably be the same as the floodplain. Yeah. And then also there's setbacks that are associated with perennial streams. So it does look like we can accomplish the first objective, which is, can the city of Reading locate a data center within the MC and HM zoning districts? And I think we can. It's just a matter of now we need to select the appropriate setback that would apply. So that's the first task that we need to do. The second task is, yes, these text amendments might be overwhelming. They were initiated based upon reaction that we're seeing. This is in the news every day, over and over and over again. People in Virginia complaining about this, that, and the other thing. People in New Jersey. I mean, and what I'm seeing it's now occurring in a lot of the northeastern portion of the state, in rural areas where land is cheaper, but these same issues keep on coming up. The issues of sound, water impacts, energy conservation, and there's so many other variables in here that have been put in for a purpose. Yes, some of them may be overreactive, but they are placed in here for good measure. First and most important thing is we're not trying to regulate data centers that are accessory to a functional use or a principal use. Not doing that. This is for a data center as a principal use, whether it be a hyperscale model or something smaller, or data center campuses. So we tried to make as many definitions as are out there. Again, a lot of people were talking in circles about telecommunications in the 90s, and now we all understand it. Like, of course we know what that is. So it's now up to us to make the provisions where we can understand it and then apply it. So we need to focus on those. So if there's anything in here that seems to be inappropriate or overwhelming, such as some of the things we just discussed, then we need to say that might be a little overkill. Maybe we need to revisit that at a later date. Most important thing we need to do is have these provisions adopted within December. So if we do not, then we do not meet our objectives for the timeframes that was set by the curative amendment. If it goes into January, then we're pushing it. We're really, really, really pushing it as far as the time schedule.
What is the risk? If we don't meet the deadline, what happens then?
The risk is that anyone can come in and place anywhere within the city of Reading a data center and claim you don't provide for this use, therefore I'm putting it here.
Mm-hmm. And they would go through a zoning review for MC anyway.
No, they can put it anywhere. They can put it in a residential district if they wanted to.
Well, I can't build a factory in a residential.
You can build a data center in there because you did not identify that use. So it's up to the municipality to identify where these uses go.
Mr. Chairman?
There's 101 other possible uses for a building, and that doesn't mean that I can plop it into a residential neighborhood.
Mr. Chairman?
It's for housing, right?
Yes, Don?
Put it there.
Yeah, this is a legal issue. I think what Jerome is explaining is part of a curative amendment process that could happen, and I would suggest that we defer to our attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is something I would need to look more deep into before I give any definitive answer. I would say that, generally if a zoning ordinance does not provide a use in any zoning district, then yes, it can be put anywhere. Now, many zoning ordinances, I would think the city of Reading would include a catch-all provision where if a use isn't provided, it has to go in a certain district. That's what I would have to look into to confirm whether or not the city of Reading provides that and whether that would cover you in case it's not provided in a zoning district. Even with the catch-all, kind of the purpose of the zoning ordinance amendment we're doing now is to provide further, more pinpoint regulations to this use that could be coming in to address them. So you don't want to rely on that catch-all provision, but it's not, assuming you have that catch-all provision, there is some sort of buffer from it being put into residential or any zoning district within the city.
Wouldn't residential zoning be restrictive enough to suggest that it's for, domiciles?
No, it's open game. So it's, if the use is not provided for, and I don't think we have that in our ordinance, Matt, the catch-all. that specifically identifies that if the use is not provided for, it's located within the zoning district.
Yeah, if
there-
this is a topic you want me to look into and get you a further answer at a later date as to what happens if you do not meet the curative deadline, I would have to do so. I'm giving you my feedback based on what limited information I have at this time. But it's something that's serious enough that I would recommend you to let us look into it in greater detail and get back to you at a later time.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can solve this pretty easily. If that is the case, if you look into it and say, yes, that is a risk, then, we can have an ordinance that says data centers as defined by XYZ must go into, MC zone, end of story, and let the existing MC requirements dictate what building looks like and setbacks and landscaping and da.
And that was the point of the initial exercise was, does our MC and HM zoning district, do they work?
Yeah.
Can we do it?
Right.
And we can. It's just a matter of what setback do we want to apply.
Yeah.
That makes it reasonable and can fit the other criteria that we then establish. So we're good on this, on the selection of the zoning district, and that's what this map demonstrates.
What is the setback currently in the MC district?
It's variable depending on the type of use, but for the most part.
And I'm sorry to interject. I think those are all, great questions, but I think, Jerome, I just want to thank you. I think you're right. I think that we need to stay focused so that way we can move this through. And if there are any amendments or alterations, then I think that's something that we can always amend. Ordinance, a law that's in place, we can always amend. What we can't do, though, is we can't go back in time once an application is placed in. And once we have no legal regulations in place. And that's, and I think, Commissioner Rye, as a business owner, you understand that businesses benefit from clear and predictable rules before they invest. And this ordinance is not meant to be anti-business. We are trying to be responsible. And, I think that we definitely need to stay focused so that way we can accomplish the task at hand.
And one thing I'd like to add is I know that this issue was serious enough or concerning enough that Michelle was very interested in getting this ordinance passed in a timely manner.
Sure. Well, and we can. I think that no doubt. It's just a question of how big is it going to be?
And that would be then the third task is finding what the most reasonable regulations can be applied, considering that we should learn from other municipalities, especially the ones that have them, not the ones that are preparing against them, but municipalities that do have data centers. And the complaints are energy use, noise, vibrations, environmental issues. So, things like that we just need to address. Some we do address within our ordinance, and it's just a matter of modifications. Did I overdo the sound criteria? Yes. And that's because of the reaction that I've been experiencing in other municipalities. For example, I've been working with a sound consultant for an acoustical consultant, and it's the amount of noise and vibration. It's the lowest volumes that we're going to be experiencing, not the higher volumes that the ordinance currently addresses. It's the A and C volumes that we're going to have to prepare for. And yes, they can be coordinated with effective measures, sound barriers and things like that if they're going to make noise. And the good thing about this is it's permitted by conditional use. So City Council is going to have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions to an applicant who does come in, and also make, as part of the decision, additional provisions that would be health, safety, and general welfare matters.
Well,
But yeah, if there's unrealistic things in here, we should.
my gut reaction is to pass an ordinance that sticks it in the MC and HM districts and then let the districts, as they stand today, govern them. With the same requirements, building size, setbacks, noise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's just what's happening inside the building. That's the only difference. This use versus that use. It's the same building, different activity. Why does it have a different requirement? Yeah. That would be my gut reaction. And if there is something specific that needs to be added, you know, there can be a rationale for it.
Well, the difference is that those buildings are going to have different effects.
Like what? Like what? I mean, we already have a pretty effective, everything can be improved, no doubt, but we always have a pretty effective zoning ordinance defines what these districts are, MC and HM, and there's plenty of businesses that operate within these, and there is no public uproar over them. So why does the use change require the building to change? You know, whether it's, you know, molding plastic or welding steel or stamping truck bodies or, you know, they all function within the district's requirement, at least when they were originally built anyway. Sometimes we don't catch when businesses evolve and do new things and no longer meet the zoning requirements, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, here's the list of assembly and packaging, electronic and electrical equipment. You know, we got World Electronics I think they're in the city of Reading, right? They use electricity and, you know, maybe they have cooling system. I don't know. Fabricated metals, food and beverage, you know, leather and leather products, machinery, paper, petroleum, primary metals, railroad. There's just a long list of permitted uses within the building that don't require the building to change or have bigger setbacks or justify themselves to some new criteria. Why is a data center any different? I'm just being devil's advocate, right? It's just another use of a building.
Some of the legal things that were brought up, I mean, just wanted to bring up a point that we do have Michelle Mayfield sitting on the task force as well as Michael Gumbar. So we do have both of those persons. So anything that we have that might be something to discuss in terms of legality, we should address with them.
Yeah, I get it. Anyway, I mean, I would suggest that you approach it from the standpoint of putting it into these districts, and then you can make some additional refinements where there is a compelling case to do so. But rather than essentially creating a whole new district, even though you're calling it MC and HM, but it essentially becomes, you know, unique to an industry, a zoning criteria unique to a one use of a building.
So your suggestion would be to lessen or not lessen, but reduce the setback requirements from the residential districts.
I'm not saying don't put them in the residential district.
Oh, no, I'm saying away from them. So right now you're saying, Quaker Made Meats makes meatballs across the street from houses, and the whole neighborhood smells like meatballs. That might be nice. It might not be nice. It depends on who you are. But there's no setback requirement for them. the reason why the setbacks are shown on here is you can see the difference between the 200 foot, the 300 foot, and the 400 and 500 feet. What that looks like in terms of the impact of the district.
Right, it takes it down to an impractically small area that essentially makes it impossible to do.
It makes it much more difficult, yes. But it's doable, yeah, it's still doable.
Well, you know, you can't thread that needle. To me, to only do it on that patch of land with this set of requirements, that's, you know, a bridge too far. That's not going to happen.
Go ahead, son.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to bring back the conversation that we had a little bit during the technical working group. I think one of the drive behind the conversation of data center was the fact that there was need to protect the community, and considering the fact that unlike other business where people can develop a building and start working in there, we know data center has high voltage flow, consistent flow. We know the noise, the consistent humming of noise, which was one of the issue of discussion during the meeting, over time can cause significant impact. And with the city being the custodian of policies, the drive of putting forward these ordinances and perhaps being a little bit more restrictive was mainly to prevent and make sure that in the future, we don't have to go back into redoing what we could have prevented. We have not at this point determined how much impact the consistent noise, the high voltage flow, and all the current flow that is going to have on our community. And I think if you are seeing a lot of restrictions, even consistent or requirement to adjust a building, it may be looking at the aspect of protection of the community, maintenance of the face of the area, but also making sure that some of the impact that may come with that is taken care of before this ordinance is passed. I think that is one area that was very significant, and a number of people during the discussion highlighted it as a key area that we should consider in our ordinances.
We should also remember that zoning in Reading didn't happen until 1974. And most of the manufacturing facilities that are here in this city are older than that.
Yeah, I know.
So with the new use, you know, we can consider this. Talking about the setbacks, maybe the question is how effective are the noise mitigation systems that are detailed in this ordinance?
I hope that they would, especially enclosures or sound barriers around the generators. Based upon testimony that I've heard from other municipalities, it's again the sound and the sound for the generators that are being utilized are essentially 40 times the amount of what you would hear from a residential. Now, what the criteria is also you have to consider is that when the PUC calls for an emergency, and this is the testimony I just heard, was that they the data centers shut down their electric draw from the grid and utilize their backup generators. So they could be on for significant number of days in the summer. And that's where the impacts are going to be. So it's up to this ordinance to then attempt to mitigate those sound issues. And is this ordinance overkill? Yes, it is. But it's something we need to consider. Maybe some of the things that we can consider is looking to see what is absolutely overkill.
Yeah, there's a circumstance where they're generating their own power, running generating capacity all the time. That's we would want to have serious noise controls for that, right? if they're using it intermittently for power outages, or if there's some peak demand that they have to shed load and go to a generator or some scenario like that. But it's occasional, like you see standby power. I mean, I have power generators for standby power in some of my buildings, and nobody's come and checked the noise level on them.
Those are good questions that since this would be at a conditional use application, council can ask what is the frequency that you're going to be utilizing the generators or supporting for anything else, and then they provide the evidence. And if they do not comply, or it does the information that they provided, then the shutdown mechanisms can occur. And like I said, we want to avoid summertime where it's 30, 40 days in a row of nothing but and then there's a room full of people in here complaining about it. So there's got to be a balance.
I would just add, Mr. Chairman, if I may, not just emergencies, which is a good point, where the power is shut off, but for maintenance. Just last week, Med-Ed shut off my neighborhood's power for an hour and a half without any notice because they were replacing the poles. So, I mean, it can we've been having a lot of outages, so it can happen for a variety of reasons and for lengthy periods. It's true we have concerns about noise from this or that cause, routine things, but those are usually passing things, like the trains, or I live in the flight path, loud music from a passing vehicle and so on. But this hum is that's the other distinction, I think. And again, I think the point is well taken that if there's some other business that had a hum all the time as well, some other use for whatever purpose, it's something we ought to consider. But I think that's an important distinction.
Okay, so with that, should we, because I didn't check this ordinance against the HM and HC, HM and the MC zones for setbacks and things. Is that something we should cross-reference?
I think that's a good point to bring to the task force attention. What Peter was looking at the MC and HM zoning districts and its setback criteria, which what this criteria is suggesting in the amendments is probably 2 times the amount in terms of setbacks from property lines, as well as residential zoning districts, things like that. So are those adequate safeguards? Are they going to mitigate the problems that we're anticipating?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
As I mentioned when we had our meeting outside of the Planning Commission, I do believe that when we're talking about setbacks, we need to correlate it with sound requirements. Setbacks. I mean, there's a number of reasons for setbacks, but sound and sight are 2 of them. And so whatever sound requirements we come up with, I think that needs to be correlated with setbacks in the zoning districts.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. However, I'm not, since I'm not an acoustical expert, I'm not sure if for the type of noise that we're talking about, if we do 100-foot setback, are there things that exist that can mitigate the noise?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there are.
Setting it back is probably the least effective thing. Putting sound barriers, enclosures, mufflers, putting all sorts of technology on the sound sources is far more effective than moving it to 100 feet away.
Yeah, the city could appoint an acoustical expert at that time when the conditional use hearing is, and be able to provide, reasonable responses and requirements that could apply.
And I believe
We-
there's
we-
that as part of the conditional use application, the applicant has to do a sound study.
Yeah, I think that's in here.
Mhm.
I know we also talked about the difference between a sound engineer and a sound expert. And it sounded like the key difference is liability. We want to make sure that when all is said and done, that the sound is at an acceptable level at the property lines, so it doesn't adversely impact the adjoining properties.
Yeah, from what I found out, that there is no such thing as a sound engineer. It is a acoustical professional, which is defined, and they are separately regulated in terms of what their educational standards, their ongoing licenses are that are provided to them, continuing education, things along those lines. But Deb Hogan and I were also looking today for if there are just to verify if there are sound engineers. They may call themselves sound engineers, but are they Ps that are
Must be
specifically
ASTM standards for measurement, sound measurement. How
The
to
key,
take measurements. And
the key issue,
likely professional agencies that will provide sound measurement services to standards. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but
I was instructed that the use of acoustical professional is the proper terminology.
yeah, well, yeah, that's fine. It's acoustics
key-
is mechanical engineering. It's not a separate degree though.
the key issue here is if there is professional liability involved. If
Yeah.
that person is not liable for their expert opinion and something goes wrong, then that's a problem. So whatever you call the person, we just need to make sure that, we don't end up with an expert opinion where something goes south and they are not held professionally liable.
The certification is through the Noise Control Engineering, INCE. The Institute of Noise Control Engineering. That's where the professional certifications for an acoustical professional come from.
Contact them and ask them how you specify noise control.
Well, and I will say that noise control engineer sounds very similar to a noise engineer. So I think we're splitting hairs, and you just got to we just have to be careful with what we do here.
And actually, in the ordinance, under the sound section, there is some ACM sections quoted, cited.
Mhm. Yeah, there's got to be industry standards that can be specified. There has to be. See how this is old science.
Okay. All right, we did just wanted to. Oh, this is what I wanted to go over. Shelley Smith and in the city clerk's office asked, there are several RAWA facilities located outside of Reading. Can this provision be enforced outside of Reading's borders? And I don't believe it can, but that's
think what she was referring to is Rawa supplying water.
Hmm.
Rawa supplying water to other municipalities. And if a data center, say, for example, is proposed within Muhlenberg Township or Onalani Township or somewhere else where Rawa does provide service, these regulations would not apply to them.
Both water and wastewater, both water and electricity are regional issues. The PUC will have a say, DEP will have a say, the Delaware River Basin Commission will have a say. And I think that the executive order by the governor actually gives them probably more jurisdiction over the whole process. But even without it, water supply and electrical supplies, they are regional issues.
Yep.
And then her only other question, because the other two have to do with Fritz Island. Throughout, there are references to the city council solicitor. And is this deliberate because this is a conditional use, or should it read city solicitor? But
it could do both, but yes, it was because it was a conditional use application.
yeah, that's what I figured, because at the end there, the city solicitor is mentioned towards the end of the ordinance when it doesn't have to do with the conditional use application. So, okay, I know how to answer her questions. I'll get back to her. I will get back to her probably Thursday. Tomorrow I have to go build a virtual sandbox for the Reading Science Center. Okay. Does anyone else have staff or anyone commissioners have any other comments?
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Maybe just because it occurred to me here, because it's obvious to us, because we're more, we understand a little bit better about the zoning, but maybe for the benefit of the public, I'm asking either our planning consultant or planning manager, if you would explain. The question here wasn't just why we're allowing these in the heavy manufacturing and commercial zoning district. Maybe we should explain, even though, like I say, it's obvious to us, why we're not allowing them in the other zoning districts.
The answer would be if we had a comprehensive plan. I think the comprehensive plan would identify the HM and MC zoning districts and identify those probably in an area where they're at right now. So the future land use map would probably indicate that. So since we don't have a current comprehensive plan, we'll have to go with what our zoning map depicts. And does it make sense for where those MC and HC zoning districts are located? And the answer is probably yes. They are located in reasonable areas where there are compatible uses within both of those, within the HM and MC zoning districts. Yes, they do abut other residential uses and neighborhoods, but it's what the criteria is attempting to do is mitigate or manage co-location of all uses within the city of Reading. Not always easy, but you're making your best attempt. And we certainly would not locate the data centers in commercial districts too small in scale. And we certainly wouldn't put them in the residential district, and we certainly wouldn't put them in the preservation district. So this makes the most sense on where we would put data centers. Again, we initially started with just looking at the HM district and felt that it might be too small. And we thought that the MC zoning district would provide some additional balance and opportunities.
We also, in addition to what Jerome has said, we also took the liberty of looking at some of the available land within the city that we can be able to use if a genuine data center was to come in the application. Looking at the MC and HM and MC districts, we took the liberty of doing some calculation after applying the setbacks. We found that within these two districts, we have a little bit of land in terms of acreage compared to other districts within the city. So we are looking at these two districts because of a number of advantages that other districts may not have, and especially one of them is availability of space for us to think and talk about a data center compared to other areas.
Thank you, gentlemen. And then one other thing, Mr. Chairman, quickly is, as our planning consultant mentioned about telecommunications regulation, this is like we had to deal with cell phone towers. I remember what a pain that was. At first, we had to approve every single one as a land development plan. And then we had to consider an ordinance that addressed all these and some of the problems that they were causing. And we were able to do that. So, and we did, some of us would prefer we didn't have them at all, but we had to accommodate them, but we did it in a reasonable way. And I think that's what we're going to be able to do here. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, that brings us to our second public comment area. So go ahead, sir.
Interesting listening to everyone, and the big problems I see is or I hear and read about, are the constant droning from centers that are already in place, and I'm really not sure why we can't take advantage of all the municipalities who already have an AI for the noise ordinance or the acoustic development or the sound engineer, acoustic guy. I think is that redundant that we have to hire our own, or like set back of so much, I guess, depending on how big it's going to be, or can we have a comparative thing? But I'm also concerned about the guardrails for water and electricity. Are there going to be guidelines or guardrails for the people who own this so that our electric bills don't double within 2 years? Or is it too late? I'm really not sure how the community of Reading, I looked at all the jobs that are going to be available, and there's not a lot of, it's high tech pretty much. I liked the way Reading is run, that you have to be, I think, in Berks County to be members of the government, if I'm not mistaken. Or city council, you have to live in Berks County. Isn't that a prerequisite?
That is correct. If you were on city council, you would have to live not only within the city of Reading, within the precincts in your district.
Yeah, has it ever been anything like a certain amount of people have to live in Berks County who work there? Is that like a possibility, or is that just like too far flung? Do you want people coming in from Philly all the time with their, their expertise? And fine, I mean, hopefully we could coordinate something with a mentoring program with RAC to train a lot of these technicians that are going to be needed for AI centers and everything. That's my concern about what guardrails do we have that our water bill isn't going to double in 3 years. Our electricity isn't going to double. I heard Erin Brockovich talk recently on Christiana Amanpour. She was the woman who brought up, are you familiar? I think it was a nuclear site. And, I mean, there's such a rush to do all these things, and, environmental impact, the hearing thing. I'm just wondering how wonderfully it's going to benefit the community, the masses of Reading. And I think we should be cautious and not run into anything. Yes, it's going to be the wave of the future, but as quite a few people have reinstated, responsibly going at it, that's the most important thing.
And that is part of it, of course, is for us doing the local zoning ordinance, which we're working on. The other thing is that these sites do have a lot of oversight from the Public Utility Commission, and that's mentioned in today's executive order.
So that it can't, like our water bill and electric bill can't double or triple within 3 or 4 years or something like that?
Actually, they're making it that under the executive order, and hopefully as soon as Shapiro's not governor, they could nix this executive order. The executive order says that any costs for connection to the grid will be bore by the data center. And there are a few other things in the executive order, but as our city engineer pointed out, PGM heavily regulates this in Pennsylvania, versus in some states where they don't have very good grid regulations, like in Texas. We also have regulation for drawing water from anywhere in the Delaware River Basin by the Delaware River Basin Authority. So there's another layer of regulations here that a lot of people don't see, and how the state will address this will be a very interesting question. Hopefully, our state representatives and congressmen will take this very seriously now that Governor Shapiro has actually, in 2 years, basically changed his mind about how these things should be regulated. So that's what I say to that. I don't know if anyone else has a quick comment about that.
I'm a bit naive, but it was interesting, and I appreciate all what you do.
I've been here 22 years and I still don't know everything. So we do thank you very much for joining us and spending the entire time with us.
Thank you also.
Thank you. Okay. With that, I think, just make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, yeah. Our next regular meeting will be August 25th, 2026 at 6 o'clock here in council chambers. Are we going to recommend this to be sent to the Berks County Planning Commission at that meeting?
We have to go back and coordinate efforts with the task force. That's going to be on the 2nd.
On the second of next month.
So we're at our next meeting. I think that this will be in September. Will be a high priority for us to review. I would expect that there's going to be another draft.
Oh, in our conversation,
Yahoo.
in our conversation during the task force meeting, one of the things we said was we would use the October meeting as the workshop meeting in October as the decision-making meeting, so that we can make a recommendation to the county during the October official meeting. So between now and towards that meeting, it will be us looking at this draft and need be maybe bringing out another one that can meet all the comments that will be coming through to us.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I do have the timeline written down, but I forgot to bring that notebook. So we do have a timeline. We're trying to get this done by Christmas
Yes.
is
Fine.
basically
First of all.
what we're working on.
That'd be a
Because the
wonderful gift.
Yeah, the moratorium ends somewhere early in January, I believe.
Well,
Speaking of that timeline, real quick, I did text Michelle about the curative amendment process, and she also confirmed that she's kind of unclear as to the exact details. So we'll take a look at that and get back to you with an answer to that question.
thank you.
Okay, great. So,
Mr. Chairman,
oh, go ahead.
I just suggest that we re-advertise that October workshop as a special meeting because we will be voting at that meeting.
That is correct. We will need to do that. And I believe Emily has it on her calendar to do that.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
And that would be
Emily's
our only
Question.
business then.
Probably.
Yeah,
Because
right.
in the September meeting, we're going to be doing something about the harp.
At the workshop in September.
But our colleague, our former colleague, Mike Louder is going to be here
Right.
in September.
And that's important, right?
So go ahead.
Just to mention, now that we have received this draft, we are still open to receiving any comments. So if any one of you or any other person has comments, please forward those to me or to Jerome or to Linda so that the three of us can receive them and consolidate them to make sure we address or we prepare for the next meeting, which is going to happen in September on 2nd at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and the public is welcome to submit comment via email. Because the September 2nd meeting is not a public meeting. It's a closed meeting. Very good. Once again, thank you everyone. We took a little bit longer than I planned. However, I think we got some very good things through my thick head that I didn't think about. And so very good. We will hopefully see everyone next week. And then our next workshop meeting is September 15th, 2026 at 6 p.m. here in council chambers, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad I wore my hearing aid today.